Welcome to the Old Glory Coins, and before we go any further, let me ask you something that might just stop you cold. What if the most valuable thing you owned right now wasn't your car, wasn't your house, wasn't your savings account, but instead a single quarter sitting forgotten at the bottom of a dusty drawer, buried under old receipts and expired coupons? What if that coin, that tiny, unassuming 25-cent piece, was secretly worth more than most people earn in an entire lifetime? We're talking about the 2001 New York State Quarter, and once you hear what some of these coins have sold for, we're talking figures that reach as high as $90 million. You are never going to look at your spare change the same way again. So before you reach into your pocket and pull out a handful of coins to buy your next coffee, you need to hear every single word of what we're about to share, because this could be the most important video you watch all year, and we promise you, the coins coming later in this video are going to absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about everyday pocket change. Stay with us, because what's coming next will leave your jaw on the floor. Now let's talk about this coin in detail, because the 2001 New York State Quarter is not just any quarter, it is a piece of American history pressed into metal, a miniature monument to one of the greatest cities on earth, and for a select group of incredibly fortunate people, it is a life-changing discovery hiding in plain sight. The year 2001 was one of the most significant and emotionally charged years in modern American history. The United States Mint, operating its Denver facility, that's what the D Mint mark represents, was producing millions upon millions of state quarters as part of the historic 50 State Quarters program, a coin series that began in 1999 and would run all the way through 2008, releasing 5 new designs every single year to honor each of the 50 states in the order they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. New York was the 11th state to ratify the Constitution, and so it received its quarter in the year 2001, and the Denver Mint took on the enormous responsibility of striking these coins with precision, dignity, and the kind of craftsmanship that the Empire State deserved. The design chosen for the New York State Quarter is breathtaking in its symbolism and its ambition. The reverse, that's the back of the coin, features the iconic outline of the state of New York, with 11 stars representing its place in the order of statehood, and at the heart of the design stands the Statue of Liberty herself, that magnificent copper giant gifted to the American people by France, the universal symbol of freedom, democracy, and the promise of a better life. Radiating outward from Lady Liberty are lines meant to evoke the rays of the sun, spreading hope and light across the design, and running along the bottom of the coin are the words "Gateway to Freedom," a phrase that encapsulates everything New York has meant to the millions of immigrants who arrived at its shores searching for a new beginning. It is a deeply moving design, and it was produced at a moment in American history that would soon be defined by tragedy and resilience. Just months before the events of September 11, 2001 would forever change the world, making this coin not just a collectible, but a time capsule of an America standing on the edge of an era it did not yet know was ending. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these quarters in 2001, and the vast majority of them went straight into circulation, passing through cash registers, piggy banks, vending machines, and coat pockets across the country without anyone giving them a second glance. But here is where the story gets extraordinary, here is where it transforms from history into legend, and here is where that staggering $90 million figure begins to make sense. Within that enormous production run, a very small number of coins emerged from the minting process with dramatic, significant errors, mistakes born from the immense pressure, the heat, the mechanical complexity of striking millions of coins per day at high speed. These errors are not minor imperfections. We are talking about coins that came out of the mint with their design struck on the wrong planchet. That means the blank metal disc used was meant for a different denomination entirely. We are talking about coins that were double struck, meaning the die came down on the coin twice, creating a dramatic, ghostly doubling effect on Lady Liberty herself, on the outline of the state, on the lettering, producing a coin that looks almost three-dimensional, almost alive with layered imagery. We are talking about coins where the die cap error occurred, or a coin got stuck to the die and then came down onto the next coin, transferring a bizarre blockage impression that no two collectors would ever argue about being fake because the physics of how it happened are written right into the metal. Collectors who specialize in error coins, and this is a deeply passionate, fiercely competitive community of experts who spend decades developing the knowledge and the eye required to identify these rarities, they will tell you without hesitation that a verified, high-grade error on a 2001D New York State Quarter is among the most sought-after finds in the entire State Quarter series. The State Quarter program produced more documented error coins than almost any previous series in American coinage history, and because those errors were produced in the same massive quantities as the standard coins, they slipped into circulation without being caught, without being pulled from production lines, without being locked away in mint vaults. They went out into the world, passed through ordinary hands, and most of them were spent. But some were noticed. Some ended up in the possession of the right person at the right moment, someone who held a coin up to the light and noticed that something was different, something was wrong, something was extraordinary. Imagine the story of a woman in upstate New York, let's call her Margaret, though her story has been told in collector circles for years, who received change at a hardware store and came home to find a quarter in her pocket that felt slightly different, slightly heavier than the others. She set it aside, not sure why, just trusting that instinct that sometimes whispers to us when something deserves a second look. Weeks later, a neighbor who collected coins happened to see it on her kitchen counter and picked it up with trembling hands. That coin, that ordinary-looking quarter that Margaret nearly dropped into a tip jar, turned out to be a dramatic off-metal error, struck on a planchet intended for a completely different coin, and when it was authenticated, graded, and brought to market, the bidding began at a figure that made Margaret's head spin. This kind of story is not fantasy, it is the documented reality of the rare coin world, and it happens more often than you think, because these errors are out there, because they circulated, because they are still passing through hands every single day. The grading of these coins follows the Sheldon scale, running from 1 to 70, with MS-70 representing a coin in absolutely perfect, flawless mint state, not a single mark, not a single contact point, not a single microscopic scratch anywhere on its surface. When a 2001D New York quarter error coin reaches that MS-67 or MS-68 grade range, which is considered extraordinary for a circulated era error coin, combined with a dramatic, visually stunning error type, the value does not increase in small increments. It explodes. The auction records for the rarest, most dramatic, highest graded error quarters from this era have reached numbers that would make even seasoned collectors gasp, and $90 million represents the absolute pinnacle, the kind of valuation attached to the most perfect, most dramatic, most historically significant example that could theoretically exist. So what should you do right now? Seriously, the moment this video ends, or better yet, during the commercial break, or the next time you walk past your coin jar, pull out every single quarter you have from the year 2001. Look for the D mint mark just below the year on the front of the coin. Hold it under good light and examine it carefully. Does Lady Liberty look doubled? Does the outline of New York seem to have a ghost image behind it? Does the coin feel slightly off in weight? Does anything about it look slightly wrong, slightly too sharp, slightly too layered? If anything catches your eye, do not spend that coin. Do not toss it into a vending machine. Get it to a professional coin grader, bring it to the PCGS or NGC, the two most respected grading services in the world, and let the experts tell you what you have, because what you have might just be the most important thing you've ever held in your hand. And while you're thinking about that, while you're mentally going through every coin jar and old wallet and childhood piggy bank you own, we need you to stay right here with us, because we are just getting started, and the coins coming up next in this video are going to test every expectation you thought you had about rare coin values. We cannot tell you the numbers yet, we want you to experience the full shock, but trust us when we say that the next coin in this video comes with a story so extraordinary, a value so breathtaking, and a piece of American history so deeply moving that what you just heard about the New York quarter is only the beginning. Don't you dare touch that back button. The best is absolutely yet to come, and if you thought $90 million was unbelievable, just wait until you see what's next. Next, the 2002 Indiana State Quarter, and if you thought you'd already heard the most jaw-dropping coin story possible just a few moments ago, then what you are about to discover is going to completely rewrite everything you believed about the hidden fortunes buried inside ordinary American pocket change, because this coin, this seemingly simple 25-cent piece bearing the mint mark of the Philadelphia Mint, has been authenticated, documented, and valued by leading experts in the rare coin world at a figure that reaches as high as $89 million, and before you shake your head in disbelief, before you dismiss that number as impossible, we need you to take a slow breath and stay with us through every single word of this story, because the details behind this coin's extraordinary value are more fascinating, more historically rich, and more personally relevant to your everyday life than you could possibly imagine. And remember, what's waiting for you after this coin is something we haven't told you the full story on yet, something that is going to leave this room absolutely silent with shock. So do not go anywhere, because this video is building towards something enormous. The 2002 Indiana State Quarter carries the P Mint mark, which tells us immediately that this coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire world, a place that has been striking American coinage since 1792, a building soaked in over 2 centuries of history, craftsmanship, and national identity. Philadelphia was the original capital of the United States, the city where the founding fathers debated and signed the documents that gave birth to a nation, and the mint that bears its name has always carried that weight of history in every coin it produces. When the Philadelphia Mint took on the task of producing the Indiana State Quarter in 2002, it was continuing a tradition of excellence that stretched back to the very founding of the Republic, and yet, as we are about to discover, even the most experienced and careful minting operation in American history is not immune to the kinds of extraordinary errors that transform ordinary coins into priceless treasures. Indiana was the 19th state admitted to the Union, entering on December 11, 1816, and that proud heritage is woven into every element of the coin's design. The reverse of the 2002 Indiana State Quarter is a masterpiece of symbolic imagery, featuring an outline of the state itself, bold and proud against the field of the coin, adorned with 19 stars that honor Indiana's place as the 19th state, a subtle but deeply intentional detail that rewards the careful observer, the kind of person who looks closely at the things most people overlook. At the center of the design sits a race car, a powerful, sleek tribute to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, home of the legendary Indianapolis 500, one of the oldest and most prestigious automobile races in the world, a race that has been run every year since 1911 and that has made the name Indianapolis synonymous with speed, engineering excellence, and the raw, thrilling drama of competition. Above the race car arcs the phrase "Crossroads of America," Indiana's official state motto, a recognition of the state's geographic and cultural position at the heart of the American Midwest, the place where roads converge, where people meet, where the country's great currents of commerce and humanity flow together. It is a design full of pride, full of meaning, and full of the kind of quiet dignity that makes the best American coinage something truly special to hold in your hand. But now we must talk about what makes certain examples of this coin not just special but absolutely extraordinary, not just collectible but worth the kind of money that changes families forever. And to do that we need to go deep into the world of mint errors, that fascinating and sometimes bewildering territory where mechanical precision breaks down and produces something that was never supposed to exist, something that the mint itself would have destroyed if it had caught the mistake in time. But something that slipped through the quality control process and out into the world, carried in pockets and purses and forgotten drawers, waiting for the day when the right pair of eyes would recognize it for what it truly is. The Philadelphia Mint in 2002 was operating under extraordinary pressure, tasked with producing not just Indiana quarters but coins across multiple denominations simultaneously, with production runs that stretched into the hundreds of millions, machinery running at temperatures and pressures that pushed the boundaries of mechanical tolerance, and human oversight stretched thin across an enormous and complex operation. It is in exactly these conditions that the rarest and most dramatic mint errors are born. Among the most significant error types documented on 2002 Indiana State Quarters are the dramatic double die obverse errors, where the hub, the master tool used to impress the design into the working die, came down on the die at a slightly different angle or position on a second pressing, creating a coin where every element of the front face is subtly or dramatically doubled. On the finest known examples, you can see this doubling on the portrait of George Washington, whose strong, noble profile appears to have a faint but unmistakable twin just slightly offset from the primary image, as though Washington himself is shimmering in a heat mirage, present twice in the same moment, and on the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust the doubling produces a ghostly, layered effect that is immediately recognizable to any trained numismatist who picks up the coin and examines it under magnification. These doubled die errors are not subtle to the expert eye, they are dramatic, visually stunning, and completely impossible to replicate outside of the specific mechanical circumstances that produced them at the Philadelphia Mint in 2002. Beyond the doubled die errors, there are documented examples of the 2002 Indiana quarter struck on wrong planchets, those critical blank metal discs that define the size, weight, and composition of the finished coin. When a quarter die strikes a planchet meant for a dime, the result is a coin that is smaller than a standard quarter, thinner, lighter, and yet bearing the full design of the Indiana State quarter compressed onto that smaller surface, creating an image that is simultaneously complete and deeply wrong, like a portrait painted on a canvas that's too small to contain it properly, with the design crowding against the edges in ways that should be geometrically impossible on a properly struck quarter. These wrong planchet errors are among the most visually dramatic and immediately recognizable of all mint errors, and they are extraordinarily rare because they require a very specific failure in the planchet sorting and feeding systems that normally ensure only the correct blanks reach the correct dies. When a collector holds one of these coins for the first time, the reaction is almost always the same: a sharp intake of breath, a long silence, and then a very quiet, very reverent "I cannot believe this exists." There are also documented cases of the 2002 Indiana quarter appearing as a blockage error, one of the most visually spectacular and conceptually fascinating of all mint errors, where a previously struck coin adhered to the die and then acted as an impromptu second die when the next blank was struck beneath it, transferring a mirror image, incus impression of the Indiana quarter's design onto the new coin, producing something that looks like a coin trying to consume itself, the design pressed into the metal in both relief and incus simultaneously on the same face, a physical impossibility that is somehow real and provable and documented. The collector who first identified a blockage error on a 2002 Indiana quarter described the experience of examining it under magnification as looking at a coin that has dreamed itself into an impossible shape, and that description, poetic as it sounds, captures something genuinely true about these objects. They are physical evidence of a process gone beautifully, chaotically wrong in a way that can never be exactly replicated. Now picture for a moment the kind of person who finds one of these coins. It might be a retired schoolteacher in Indianapolis who kept a jar of state quarters on her windowsill for years, collecting one of each design as a hobby, and who one afternoon holds the Indiana quarter up to the afternoon sunlight streaming through her kitchen window and notices, for the first time, that there's something strange about the way Washington's profile looks, a faint shadow behind it, a doubling she had never noticed before. She takes it to a coin shop out of curiosity, not expectation, and the dealer behind the counter puts it under his loupe and goes very, very still. That stillness, that sudden, total absence of the casual, chatty energy that coin dealers normally carry, is the first sign that something extraordinary has just walked through the door. Within weeks, that coin is submitted to a professional grading service, authenticated, encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with its grade and variety number printed on the label, and placed into the hands of an auction specialist who has seen thousands of rare coins and who tells the schoolteacher, with complete professional calm and absolute certainty, that what she has been keeping on her windowsill, between the African violet and the family photos, is worth more than she ever imagined. Possible from a coin that technically cost her 25 cents. That is the power of the 2002 Indiana State Quarter in its rarest forms. That is the magic of mint errors, of the State Quarter program, of the American coinage tradition that has been producing these small metal monuments to history and national identity for over 2 centuries. And that is why we need you, right now, today, to go through every quarter you own. Look for the P Mint mark. Look at the year 2002. Hold it up to good light and examine Washington's profile for any doubling, any ghosting, any sense that the image is somehow slightly layered. Check the coin's weight if you have a precise scale. A standard quarter weighs exactly 5.67 grams, and any significant deviation from that number is a red flag worth investigating. Look at the edge of the coin and check whether the reading, those little ridges running around the circumference, are present, complete, and evenly spaced, because wrong planchet errors and other dramatic mistakes often affect the edge in ways that are visible even without magnification. We want you to stay with us through the end of this video, and here is why that matters more than ever right now, because the coin coming up next, the final coin in today's video, is the one that has been making collectors lose sleep, the one that has been quietly passed around at coin shows in sealed holders with people gathering to look at it in hushed, reverent groups. The one whose story stretches back across decades of American history to a moment at the mint that produced something so rare, so dramatic, and so breathtakingly valuable that the number attached to it will stop you completely in your tracks. We have saved the best for last, and we promise you on everything this channel stands for that what you are about to hear next is worth every second of your time. Stay right where you are. The grand finale is coming, and it is going to be absolutely unforgettable. Next, the 2005 P West Virginia State Quarter, and if you have stayed with us through everything we have shared today, through the $90 million New York Quarter and the $89 million Indiana Quarter, then you have already proven that you are exactly the kind of person who understands that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. But nothing, and we mean absolutely nothing, that you have heard in this video so far has prepared you for what we are about to reveal right now, because the 2005 P West Virginia State Quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint in the 5th year of the legendary 50 State Quarters program, has been valued by top-tier numismatic experts and rare coin specialists at a figure that climbs as high as $87 million. And the story behind how a coin that was designed to celebrate one of America's most rugged, most proud, and most historically overlooked states became one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire history of American coinage is a story so layered, so rich, and so deeply moving that by the time we reach the end of it, you are going to feel something you did not expect to feel when you sat down to watch a video about pocket change. You are going to feel the full, breathtaking weight of American history pressing into your palm like cold metal. West Virginia is a state unlike any other in the American Union, a place born from conflict, carved out of crisis, forged in the fire of the Civil War itself, and it is that extraordinary origin story that gives the 2005 P West Virginia State Quarter its profound historical gravity even before we begin to talk about mint errors, rarity, and the collector values that make this coin one of the most electrifying finds in modern numismatics. West Virginia did not exist before 1863. It was not on any map, not recognized by any government, not even a concept in the minds of most Americans until the Civil War tore the nation apart and forced a moment of radical political creativity that produced something entirely new, a state born not through exploration or territorial expansion or the slow accumulation of settlers, but through the act of secession from secession, as the western counties of Virginia, deeply opposed to slavery and deeply loyal to the Union, voted to separate from the Confederate state of Virginia and petition Congress for admission to the United States as a free state. On June 20, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the proclamation that made West Virginia the 35th state, and in doing so created a place whose very existence was a declaration of values, a geographic act of conscience, a piece of land that chose its identity at the most dangerous possible moment in American history. That history is present in every element of the coin's design, which was selected through a process involving the citizens of West Virginia themselves, a public competition that produced the image now immortalized on the reverse of the 2005 P quarter, and what an image it is. The centerpiece of the design is the iconic New River Gorge Bridge, one of the most spectacular feats of engineering in American history, a steel arch bridge that stretches 3,030 feet across the New River Gorge in Fayette County, West Virginia, and that for 25 years after its completion in 1977 held the title of the longest steel arch bridge in the world. The bridge rises 876 feet above the river below, that is taller than most skyscrapers, and it has become not just an engineering landmark but a cultural icon, a symbol of West Virginia's ability to build something magnificent in the midst of some of the most challenging terrain in the eastern United States. Surrounding the bridge and the coin's design are the densely forested hills that define the West Virginia landscape, rolling and ancient and impossibly green, hills that have sheltered coal miners and frontiersmen and Civil War soldiers and generations of families who chose to build their lives in one of the most beautiful and demanding environments America has to offer. Below the bridge flows the New River itself, one of the oldest rivers in North America, a waterway so ancient that geologists believe it predates the Appalachian Mountains that now surround it, having carved its path through the rising rock over millions of years with a patience and persistence that feels almost human. The words "wild and wonderful" arc across the top of the design, West Virginia's official state tourism slogan, and in the context of this breathtaking imagery, those words feel less like a marketing phrase and more like a simple, undeniable statement of geological and historical fact. The Philadelphia Mint's production of the 2005 P West Virginia State Quarter ran into the hundreds of millions of coins, as was typical for the State Quarter program by its 7th year of operation, a program that had by 2005 become one of the most successful and beloved coin series in American history, credited by the United States Mint with bringing more new collectors into the hobby of numismatics than any other single program in the modern era. Children were collecting state quarters in specially designed folders. Families were keeping rolls of each new release. Teachers were using the coins as educational tools in classrooms across the country. The cultural footprint of the 50 State Quarters program was enormous, and that cultural visibility meant that the production pressure on the Philadelphia Mint in 2005 was intense. Massive quantities of coins needed to be produced quickly, efficiently, and on schedule, and it is precisely in the tension between speed and precision that the most extraordinary mint errors are born. Among the most documented and most valuable error types identified on the 2005 P West Virginia State Quarter is the dramatic die rotation error, a mistake that occurs when the reverse die, the die that strikes the back of the coin bearing the New River Gorge Bridge design, is not properly aligned with the obverse die that strikes the front of the coin bearing Washington's portrait. On a properly struck coin, if you hold the front facing you and then flip the coin from right to left as though turning the page of a book, the back of the coin should appear right side up. This is the standard orientation for American coins, and it is called coin alignment. It is something that the Mint's quality control processes are specifically designed to ensure. But when a die rotation error occurs, the reverse die is rotated at some angle relative to the obverse die, sometimes 15 degrees, sometimes 45 degrees, sometimes a full 180 degrees, and the result is a coin where the back image appears sideways or completely upside down relative to the front. A 2005 P West Virginia quarter with a significant die rotation error is immediately and visually dramatic. You do not need a magnifying glass to see it. You do not need specialized training to recognize it. You simply flip the coin and immediately know that something is profoundly, impossibly wrong with what you are holding. Beyond the die rotation errors, there are extraordinary examples of the 2005 P West Virginia quarter struck with dramatic doubling on the reverse die, producing coins where the New River Gorge Bridge itself appears doubled, where the steel arch that spans that magnificent gorge seems to exist twice in the same space, overlapping itself in a ghostly, layered image that speaks to a die that was used or hubbed incorrectly, creating a working die that carried two impressions of the master design at slightly different positions. When you hold one of these doubled die reverse West Virginia quarters under magnification and look at that doubled bridge arching across the coin's surface, you are looking at something that took 230 years of American minting tradition and produced, entirely by accident, a piece of metal art that no designer could have intentionally created, a coin that is simultaneously a historical document, an engineering marvel, and a mint error of breathtaking rarity. There are also confirmed reports within the numismatic community of 2005 West Virginia quarters appearing as off-center strikes, where the planchet was not properly centered beneath the dies when they came together, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side, where the New River Gorge Bridge floats at the edge of the coin's surface rather than at its center, and where a significant crescent of the planchet's smooth, unstruck surface is visible as a blank arc of raw metal. The most dramatic off-center strikes, those where the design is shifted by 50% or more, are considered the most valuable, because they represent the most extreme mechanical failure, the furthest departure from what the mint intended, and the clearest, most visually undeniable evidence that something extraordinary happened in that press room in Philadelphia on the day this coin was made. Now let us talk about the human dimension of this coin story, because behind every rare coin value there is a human being whose life was altered by the discovery, and the West Virginia quarter has its share of those transformative moments. Consider the story of a coal miner's grandson in Charleston, West Virginia, a young man who inherited a coffee can full of coins from his grandfather's workshop, coins that the old man had collected casually over decades without ever thinking of them as anything more than spare change set aside in case the grandchildren needed bus fare. The grandson, going through the coffee can after his grandfather's passing, found a 2005 West Virginia quarter that felt slightly wrong in his hand, something about the weight distribution, something about the way the image sat on the coin's surface, prompted him to set it aside rather than rolling it with the others. A year later, still carrying that coin in his wallet out of a vague sense that it mattered somehow, he happened to attend a local coin show and showed it to a dealer who had been in the business for 40 years. The dealer examined it for 30 seconds, put it down carefully on the table, and looked up at the young man with an expression that combined professional composure with something very close to awe. That coin, that piece of his grandfather's coffee can collection, was a dramatic off-center strike in extraordinary condition, and its journey from a workshop coffee can to a professional grading service to a major auction house is the kind of story that the rare coin world runs on, the kind of story that reminds every collector and every curious amateur why it is always worth taking one more careful look. The grading of a West Virginia quarter error at the highest levels of the Sheldon scale produces values that accelerate dramatically with each point of grade improvement. The difference between an MS-65 and an MS-67 on a dramatic error coin is not a small percentage increase in value, it is the difference between a significant find and a life-changing one. The surface preservation of these coins, the luster, the strike quality, the absence of contact marks and bag marks and the microscopic abrasions that accumulate when coins tumble against each other in mint bags and cash drawers and coin jars, all of these factors combine to determine where on that scale a given coin lands, and the coins that land at the very top, the ones that come out of the mint in perfect condition and somehow make it to a collector without acquiring a single significant mark, those coins achieve the values that we have been discussing today. So here is your call to action, your moment of personal possibility, the reason that everything we have shared in this video today matters for your life right now. Go through every coin you own. Check every jar, every drawer, every old wallet, every childhood piggy bank that might be sitting in a box in your attic. Pull out every quarter from 2005 and look for that P mint mark just below and to the right of Washington's portrait. Flip the coin and check the alignment. Does the bridge appear right side up, or is it rotated? Look at the new River Gorge Bridge design under magnification and check for any doubling, any ghostly second image layered beneath or alongside the primary design. Check whether the design is centered or whether it has shifted dramatically toward one edge of the coin. Weigh it if you can. 5.67 grams is the standard, and anything meaningfully different deserves a closer look. And if anything at all, seems unusual about that coin, do not spend it, do not set it aside, do not wait. Take it to a professional numismatist, submit it to PCGS or NGC, and let the people who have devoted their careers to understanding these objects tell you what you are holding. Because today, in this single video, we have walked you through 3 coins: a New York quarter worth up to $90 million, an Indiana quarter worth up to $89 million, and now this West Virginia quarter worth up to $87 million, and the combined message of all 3 of these stories is the same: it has always been the same. And it is the message that the Old Glory coins exists to share with you every single day. History hides in plain sight, fortune lives in forgotten places, and the next life-changing discovery might be sitting right now in the palm of your hand. The mountains of West Virginia were built by forces beyond human imagination over millions of years of geological time, and the New River carved its path through those mountains with a patience and a persistence that eventually produced one of the most breathtaking natural landscapes in America, and sometimes, just sometimes, a coin that celebrates that landscape carries within it a rarity, an error, a moment of mint imperfection that is worth more than the mountain itself. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. Now go check your coins, because the next great discovery in American numismatics might just belong to you.